Where am I? Great. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Uncivil Law, Kraken Follow-Up Edition. In today's edition of Uncivil Law, we will be discussing the brand new lawsuit that has been filed by the voting machine manufacturer Dominion against Sidney Powell for $1.3 billion. Half of that is in compensatory costs and half of that is in punitive. So depending on your point of view, it's $600 million and change times 2, which is $1.3 billion. Either way, we've got this big lawsuit that's just been filed. So, as we know, Sidney Powell and Lin Wood have been out and about for the last couple months making some aspersions against Dominion. That their machines are hacked, are hackable, are compromised. There's software in there from Venezuela. They have a communist on their board or some stuff. I don't know. There's been a lot of accusations made. And Dominion is not pleased because this has hurt their business. And so they basically like to sue for essentially defamation. For $1.3 billion. So that's the thing that's happening. So we're not going to read this entire lawsuit probably. We'll skip around some because it's a 124-page complaint. Includes pictures, includes receipts. 124 pages is a lot of complaint. 20, 30 pages, 124 is, So we will skip around some. So I'm not going to read every line. I'm going to look at the stuff I find interesting and discuss that. And we'll still be here for like 3 hours, I'm sure. So don't worry. I'm sure you'll get your law fix in. All right, let's get started with this anyway. This is in the United States District Court for the District of Columbia. It is Dominion, a Colorado-based company, versus Sidney Powell, a resident of the city of Dallas, Texas. And we have a complaint and demand for a jury trial because, of course, we do. We want a jury trial in D.C. Yeah, that's a pretty good place if you want to be Dominion. So, okay. I assume we'll probably get to venue, why venue is particularly relevant here as opposed to anywhere else, but we'll get there. Okay, the statements arise from Sidney Powell, who, acting in concert, made false statements causing unprecedented harm. Okay, so during a Washington, D.C. press conference, a Georgia political rally, and media blitz. So they're going to use the Washington, D.C. press conference as essentially a predicate act, and so we can basically sue them for that along with everything else. So we had our choice of jurisdiction. Yeah, probably works. Yeah, I'll do it. I'm sure they'll fight over venue. They'll fight over venue. They'll fight over everything. I think they'll probably spend the next year just fighting on motion practice. They'll spend a year trading paper and not getting anywhere. It'll be my guess. But we're way early to figure that out, so we'll see. Anyways, during all these things, Powell claimed falsely that Dominion had rigged the election, that Dominion was created in Venezuela to rig elections for Hugo Chavez, and that Dominion bribed Georgia officials for a no-bid contract. Biden says they've had many more than 124 pages of complaint. Man, that's a long complaint, man. Write less. Powell's wild accusations are demonstrably false. Far being created in Venezuela to rig elections for a now-deceased Venezuelan dictator, Dominion was founded in Toronto for the purpose of creating a fully audible, paper-based voting system that would empower people with disabilities to vote on independently verifiable paper ballots. So not so much Venezuela as Canada, which are two different countries for sure. So this software is certified under standards promulgated by the Election Assistance Commission, reviewed and tested, and all that good stuff. Because of these safeguards, there's mounds of evidence that conclusively prove the claims are false and confirm that accurately counted votes on paper ballots. And we have poll workers counting paper ballots. Okay. To prove that there's paper, I guess. So we're proving that there is, in fact, paper ballots. Here's a picture of some paper ballots. While respected Georgia Republicans disapproved of Powell's false accusations, Powell sought to discredit them by falsely accusing Dominion of paying kickbacks to them and their families in return for a no-bid contract. The only evidence Powell ever put forward to support this was a doctored certificate from the Georgia Secretary of State. Powell insinuated the fact that the certificate is undated is suspicious. In reality, the authentic certificate is dated and publicly available on the public records showing there's a competitive bid process. Yeah. Although Powell assured the public during television and radio that her claims were backed by evidence, the evidence includes declarations from a motley crew of conspiracy theorists, con artists, armchair experts, and anonymous sources who were judicially deemed to be wholly reliable. Yeah, that is definitely a thing that happened. There is a misconception among some people that all the lawsuits that were filed were dismissed for things like standing or latches or ripeness or mootness. They were dismissed for procedural reasons. But that's not true. A few of them actually did get to something resembling merits. A few of them were actually considered somewhat on the merits. And where they were, the court said, this evidence sucks. And yeah. On a preliminary injunction, which is what you were asking for in those cases, you need to show a whole bunch of things, and your evidence kind of sucks. So, no. So, yeah. That's what some of those courts did get to the merits on it. Not every court refused to hear the case. Some courts had testimony. Some courts had hearings. Some courts said that stuff was garbage. One of Powell's unreliable sources was a purported military intelligence expert who now admitted he never actually worked in military intelligence. The declaration Powell's clerk for him was misleading, and he was trying to backtrack on it. After he was discredited, Powell pivoted by presenting his declaration as being written by a different anonymous source. Oof. You probably want to get who is writing the declarations and depositions. Okay, that's something you probably want to get down. During some of the media appearances, Powell also touted a shocking declaration from an anonymous source purporting to be a Venezuelan military officer alleging decade-old conspiracy beginning with the now deceased Venezuelan dictator Hugo Chavez. But the expert was the explanation in the anonymous witness's declaration for why he purportedly came forward was a near verbatim recitation from another declaration, proving these witnesses did not write their declarations independently, which, they never do, but yeah. And raising serious questions about what role and her team played in drafting the declaration. That's a little bit unfair. Like every declaration every declaration is written by an attorney. They all are. Because you have to get the wording right. So, I don't know the last time someone filed their own declaration in a case, but yeah, an attorney's always going to write it, because of course they are. But they're alleging something more than merely helping. They're alleging coaching. They're alleging something a little bit more than just merely assisting. They're alleging basically they put words in their mouth, which is a whole different problem. Can I change the color of the paper? It's off-white. This is a gray. I mean, it's naturally white. What color would you like? I mean, white on black paper with white text doesn't look good. But I mean, originally this is white, and I toned it down a couple shades of gray to make it a little bit easier to read. But what color would you like? I tried to make it more visible or less glary. I'm open to suggestions. Powell deliberately lied about having a video of Dominion founders saying he could change 1 million votes no problem at all. Powell has never produced that recording because it does not exist. Yeah. As a result of defamatory falsehoods peddled by Powell, in concert with like-minded allies and media outlets who are determined to produce a false preconceived narrative, Dominion founder, Dominion employee, Georgia's governor, and Georgia's Secretary of State have been harassed and received death threats, and Dominion has suffered enormous harm. Yeah, that's blue on gray. It's no white. Yeah, I changed the colors to make it a little bit more visible. For me too. It's because it's a little glaring for me. So yeah, I changed it to make it a little bit easier to read. Oh, now we're gonna have what colors is it thing? I see blue and gold. That's good. Do I think Linwood will be sued? Possibly. Linwood has other problems, but yeah, I would imagine. Yeah. The font isn't black. I changed the font to blue. I think it looks better. Yeah. After Dominion sent, this is a legal document. It's white paper in black text because, of course, it is. So yeah. Anyways, after Dominion sent Powell a letter to put her on formal notice of the facts and death threats and asked her to retreat the false claims, Powell doubled down, tweeting to her 1.2 million followers that she heard that Dominion had written to her, and although she had not seen the letter, she's retracting nothing because we have evidence and they're fraud masters. Yeah. Did she... Wasn't that letter sent by... Was that letter sent by... No, that's a tweet. Yeah, because didn't she... Yeah, because later she would send a formal letter. And who is representing Sidney Powell? Linwood. Yeah, there's been Kraken merger. I don't know if Linwood's representing them in this case or not. We can skip to the because we'll see who actually formally answers. But yeah, Linwood wrote one of the answers to the cease and desist. The answer was no, we will not do those things. So we will see if Linwood wants to make an appearance in this case on behalf of Sidney Powell, and if the Kraken merger will continue. We'll find out. Not that Sidney Powell wants or would listen to my legal advice, but my legal advice is hire someone else. Hire, like, literally almost anyone else, except Rudy Giuliani. Maybe hire someone who hasn't been involved in the Kraken lawsuits at some point. Just a recommendation. Maybe literally anyone who's not been involved in the last 2 months of the whatever this has been. Literally anybody. I think Devin Stone is probably available. Go get Devin. He'll help you out. Maybe. I don't know if he'll take you for a client, but maybe if you come with a big pile of money. He is admitted in D.C., so I'm just saying. Yeah. Then we can get the merger of all the things I like. To ensure that her tweet will be published to the largest possible audience and inflict maximum harm on Dominion, Powell tagged some of her allies with massive followings, including a whole bunch of people. In days and weeks that follow, Powell appeared in a number of media interviews and continued to double down, set the record straight. Okay, so we got some parties. We got Sidney Powell herself. We got her law firm, and we got the fundraising website. I don't know if DC has an anti-slap or not. And I doubt it would be successful, even if there was one. I don't know if DC has an anti-slap. Someone asked me about anti-slap. $5 from me. Thank you for the laughter. And yeah, Joe's Mead said, will Powell make anti-slap? I don't know if DC has anti-slap or not. And even if they do, I don't think it's going to work. We'll get to defenses in a bit. So we got these people defending the Republic. Talk a little bit. Okay, so we're doing diversity of citizenships. We're doing diversity of jurisdiction, personal jurisdiction over all defendants, because defendants transacted business within District of Columbia, caused tortious injury acts committed within District of Columbia. That would be the speech in D.C. An act in D.C., which is different from the Toddy Katie case, because in the Toddy Katie case, Katie made her statements outside of Washington, right? That's one of the reasons we're having this problem or these issues, right? So they're saying one of their acts was committed inside DC. So that'll work, including against specifically making false statements from within the District of Columbia and causing tortious injury by other acts. If you have personal jurisdiction, you have it for one reason, you have it for all reason. So you can get personal jurisdiction for the speech that they made in D.C., and then you just bring everything else in for the ride. Yeah. Hire a bunch of new law grads. Hire a bunch of people who just took the bar. Hire a bunch of post 3Ls who have taken the bar. Hire a group of them, maybe some law review people or some moot court people, and give them a big pile of money. They could probably help you out. I'm not even kidding. They probably could do a pretty decent job. If you get a bunch of recently graduated law students, especially people who have some real good mock trial and moot court experience, and you get a team of them together with some experience, they might actually be able to do a half decent job. You could do worse. You could do a lot worse. The court has personal jurisdiction because they traveled to it and made defamatory statements. The court has personal jurisdiction over the business because it regularly transacts business within the District of Columbia. The court has business over defending a republic because it transacts business within the District of Columbia. That's probably true. I don't see personal jurisdiction being a real problem here. Requiring defendants to litigate these claims does not offend traditional notions of due process. Venue is proper because a substantial portion of the events occurred in the District of Columbia, which seems to be true. So, yeah, I don't think there's going to be a personal jurisdiction problem here. How's my Friday? Pretty great. My Friday is pretty great. Thank you to the 231 of you who are currently watching. Your watching is always appreciated. Please remember to subscribe and do all that YouTube stuff. It helps me. All right, so now we'll skip around a little bit on facts because a lot of this is just going to go through a lot of meticulous detail. We don't need all this detail, so we'll just get the cliff notes of what's going on. So in 2002, John Populus had the idea he created the business of Dominion voting system in 2002. 2009, it grew into a subsidiary. Today, it's owned by these other businesses. They contract with governments. They provide local officials. Dominion technology was used in 1,635 jurisdictions in the 2016 election in more than 24 red and blue states. So they have a whole bunch of experience. Let's see. So this is going to the supposed no bid contract or lack thereof. As available records show, there's a competitive process to provide for voting machines. After scoring highest in the competitive bid progress, they won it. The Secretary of State provided a sealed record showing that it's been tested and complies with law. They administered the elections pursuant to law. So we got our contract properly. It was certified in all the right ways. Things went on. The voting paper trail is hard evidence. Yeah, this is a good reason to have voting paper. This is a good reason to have paper ballots. I'm a big fan of paper ballots. I don't mind using a machine to create the ballots, but I do love paper ballots. And the reason is because you can actually go count the paper. It's pretty hard to fake, because you have to fake the electronic record and fake the paper. That's hard. That's faking two things, right? You have to fake the electronic record and fake the paper. That's tough. Faking one or the other, maybe. Faking both is going to be hard. Yeah. So the independent hand audits and recounts have repeatedly verified the accuracy of the vote counts, which I'm sure they did. After 100% audits, they said the recount was accurate. How much did the Georgia count change by at all, if at all? I'm sure it changed a little. How much did the Georgia count change as a result of the hand counts? Does anyone happen to know off the top of their head? Maybe it's mentioned in here. But how much did it change? I mean, there would be some changes, but how much? It's going to be next to nothing compared to the number of total votes. But, they probably scared up a couple dozen or maybe 100 or 200 or something like that, or 300. I wouldn't expect much more than that. Now, also, humans are fallible, so that isn't even assuming that they counted correctly. The hand count number is the legal number, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the correct number, right? Because You're assuming that the humans counted it correctly by hand. All the humans who interacted with it. So there's that. It's not really. It might be the legally certified number, but it may not be the actual literal to the vote truth, because human beings do make mistakes. Yeah, so it was less than 0.1%. That sounds about right. That sounds about right. As Secretary of State, Rossenberger explained after a signature match, $5, saying, "I appreciate your content." Well, thank you. I appreciate your super chat, and I don't ever want to go seeming like I am ungrateful. It helps me grow. It helps the channel grow. It helps me afford new stuff like this new camera lens, and it helps me begin to work towards my dream of making YouTube my full-time job. I have so much stuff to cover, and I don't have time, because I have a day job. It sucks up so much of my time. And I'd like to do this full time so I can cover things like, for example, the New York bill that is going to be dealing with quarantining people. That's something I'd love to cover. I need to cover the lawsuits between Toddy and her business partner at some point. I need to still do more Supreme Court reacts. Where do you find the time to do all this? I'm always behind. There's more law than I can cover. Yeah, it means that the election results were 99.964% accurate. So less than 0.1%, 0.03%. That sounds about right, yeah. That sounds about right. Similarly, as Secretary Rossenberger explained to Donald Trump during a telephone call, "I don't believe you're really questioning the Dominion machines, because we did a hand tally, a 100% retally of all the ballots, and compared them with the votes and came up with virtually the same result. Then we did another recount and came up with virtually the same result. So I guess we could probably take that off the table. I don't think there's an issue about that." Yeah, even if somehow someone had rigged or faked the machines, how do you fake all the ballots to also match the machines? Especially after 2 recounts. That's a lot of faking, especially when you have all the voting places in different places, different paper in different places, being counted by different authorities, and so forth and so on. That's a lot of conspiracy, man. Similarly, in a press conference and an official with the Georgia Secretary of State, let's just go to other ridiculous claims that the vending voting machines are somehow used for fractional voting or flipping votes. And according to our hand tally, no. This is one of the many benefits of paper, because you can do hand tallies and be like, yep, the machine was right. Hand counted ballots in Michigan confirmed that they were accurately counted. We've not seen any evidence of fraud there. In Arizona, they released a statement overwhelming showing the system is accurate. The tabulation equipment met mandatory requirements, and a hand count audit showed the machines generating an accurate count. The paper confirmed what the machine said. Yeah. I'm a bit too close to the lens. Maybe I am. Maybe I need to move the lens back. This lens doesn't have zoom because it's a prime lens, so that means I have to physically move the camera. But that's a fair point. Maybe I'm too close to the camera. It's a new lens, so I'm not used to it yet. But yeah, maybe I need to move the camera a little further back. But I'm not going to do that right now because it would take time. But I'll look into it in the future. But thank you for letting me know. Let's see. And then, of course, the Governing Council and Election Sector said that there were no evidence of voting systems and was signed off by Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency that said there were no problems. Is the sum they sued for reasonable? We haven't quite gotten that far, but there's reasons to believe it might be reasonable. Given the amount of business that Dominion does and the amount of reputational they harm, it might be a reasonable number. We haven't gone that far yet, though. But I'll let you know later. Also, they were somewhat strangely precise in the amount that they actually asked for. They got it to like nearest $1,000. So I think they're basing it off some sort of calculation. So hopefully they'll provide evidence of what that is, because they asked for a fairly precise number. They didn't ask literally for 1.3 billion. They asked for 2 times some other number that was very precise, strangely precise. So we'll see how they came up with that. Oh yeah, I do love the bokeh. I do love the lens. I do love the bokeh. I do love the blur of the background, and then brings me into relief. I am loving this lens. It was $300 for the lens, and it's really working out very well. For the photographers there, by the way, it's a Sigma 30mm f1.4. For those in the photography crowd who care about such things. And it is working out very, very well. Do I have the aperture set at 1.4? Of course I do. Of course I do. Bokeh the hell out of the background. Absolutely. Open that lens all the way up, baby. Yeah. Yeah. In an effort to make an Evans confirmed a false narrative, Powell found an ally in the prior CEO of Overstock. He got in touch with him and told him he knew monthly before the election that goons were going to steal the election. They started funding a plan in August. They plot out what they're going to do and reverse engineer how the thing was stolen. Do we get singing on non-T cases? Hell yes. Hell yes, you get singing. As it inspires, as the mood strikes me. I like looking at your background and now it's all blurry. That is kind of the idea, yes. Can't please everybody. A couple of days after the election, they showed up at the campaign and began pressing this. There's no evidence for it. Meeting with the Trump campaign. Fundraising money off the back of this. Powell acting in concerts with the media. Went on various television shows to say that the Hugo Chavez had basically flipped the election and had the machines flip votes and stuff. We got an unflattering picture of Sidney Powell. They definitely are looking for the unflattering pictures. That's why I said somewhat tongue in cheek, if they ever want to mention me in a lawsuit, just make sure you get a good picture of me, because trying to just make me look kind of good in the photo. That's all I really want. I don't know how you can take having that much light in my eyes. There's actually not as much light in my eyes as you would think. That's one of the benefits of having a lens at 1.4. It's actually not any brighter in here than it ever has been. It just looks brighter because the lens is so badass and lets in so much light. So, yee. So Donald Trump tweeted this with some republication. Newsmax did an interview and they had to cycle back real hard because they didn't want to get sued. Powell claimed to have a bombshell that she said that she had a video of the founder admitting he can change 1 million votes no problem, and never tweeted the video because it doesn't exist. So we're just making up stuff. Sidney Powell said, I have a video of the founder saying exactly this thing. I'm going to release it. She never released it because it doesn't exist. Despite the fact that Trump appointee Chris Krebs had already confirmed there's no evidence of voting, despite the Powell had told nationally televised evidence, she had a credible video evidence she never produced, and despite the fact the Trump campaign knew Powell had no evidence, Donald Trump invited more than 88 million of his followers to tune into this important press conference, and then Sidney Powell, in a slightly better photo, is giving the press conference in Washington, D.C., which is our jurisdictional hook. Well, no, actually that's slightly the wrong word. Let me try again. It's our venue hook. That was the one I wanted. This is why we're suing in D.C. Because of this right here. This is a tort. We're going to say this event was a tort that occurred in D.C. We can get jurisdiction over that tort. Therefore, we can get jurisdiction over all the torts, which they're right. They can. And we want it heard in D.C. as opposed to any other places we could. Probably because we think we can get a very favorable jury in D.C. Which voted what? 93% Democrat. So Yeah. Now the chat is arguing over whether I should have gotten the 1.2 instead of the 1.4. Why don't we just go all the way and get like that really expensive glass with the sub 1? Why don't we get like some 0.9 shit? Just go all the way for some ultra low light candle work, like in the movies, where they want to do filming with only candlelight, so they get those like 0.9, 0.8 lenses. Get some of that going on here. That'd be good. Really expensive glass. The same day, Powell talified a press conference. Did I turn on closed captioning? I don't know. Despite having no evidence, Powell capitalizes on her false accusations to ingratiate herself to Donald Trump. Pretty much. That did seem to be her manifest intent at that point. I think that's a fair way to characterize it, yes. Despite the invitation to appear on the show and present evidence from Tucker Carlson, she never sent any evidence despite a lot of requests, not a page. That definitely happened with a little tiff between Tucker Carlson and Sidney Powell with like, please appear on our show. We'll give you the entire hour if you want. Please present us some evidence. We'd love to talk about it. And never presented any. Joey said, what camera am I using? The Sony Alpha 5100, which is a very good camera. I very much like the form factor of the Sony, as opposed to like the Canon or Nikon. The Canons or Nikons are so much bulkier. And the Sony takes as very good color, I think. So I like the Sony very much. The Sony Alpha 5100 with a Sigma branded 30mm f1.4 is what I'm using for my kit. The microphone is a Rode NT1A for those of you who care at home. Matt says an F of 1 would be a perfect circle. I'm pretty sure I've seen F's lower than 1. I believe there is F's lower than 1. I don't think I just made it up. Why don't you go Google, Matt, and see if you double check me. I believe that there are lenses lower than 1. Yeah, I believe there is some 0.9 crap out there. I don't think I just made that up. Matt's over here fact checking me. I'm going to fact check Matt. I think you're wrong, Matt. I think there are lenses lower than 1. Yeah, I really like the Sony. I really like it a lot. It's only 1080, but why do I need more than 1080? You know, why do I need 4K? I guess I could get the 4K and film in 1440, which maybe I'll do that at some point, but we're not in a rush to do that. Yeah, f0.95 does exist, but they're wonky and not the same deal. Yeah. Fight. Yeah. On November 20, after a hand count of 100%, the paper ballots verified the accuracy the very next day. The next day after the hand count, Powell conducted a telephonic interview during which she doubled down on her false accusations, claiming that Georgia's certification was totally false, total farce. And Mr. Kemp and the Secretary of State, who are Republicans, are in on this Dominion scam with the last-minute purchase or award of a contract to Dominion of $100 million. The governor and the Secretary of State received death threats. The next day, during an interview of ABC News This Week, Trump loyalist Chris Christie gave an interview in which he stated, if you got the evidence of fraud presented, the conduct of the legal team has been a national embarrassment. It was not the best lawyering I've ever seen in my life. Powell has never come forward to present evidence that Dominion bribed Governor Kemp or the Secretary because no such evidence exists because it's false. Let's see. Yeah. In calls to the White House, several Republican senators warned that Powell seemed unhinged. Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell, I don't know what happened to them, but they've gone way off the deep end. Way off the deep end. Way off the deep end. In call to the White House, and the Trump campaign said Sidney Powell's practicing law on her own. She's not a member of the Trump team. And even after that, she issued public statements claiming the votes for Trump and Republicans had been stolen. Just 2 days after the Trump campaign had distanced themselves, Powell repeated her falsehoods about Dominion during a televised interview on Fox Business. Just making these repeated statements over and over and over. So basically, at this point, we are well on our way to malice. In case you're wondering what's going on here at this point, we are well on our way to malice if we haven't already arrived at that point. The reason that this is important is because of public figure status. Dominion is definitely public figure. This is a matter of public concern. It's an election. It's easy. Of course they're public figure. So to get to defamation, which I assume is where we're going, we need to get to actual malice. And what is actual malice? Actual malice is you know it's false, or you recklessly disregard the truth. So you actually know it's false, or you recklessly disregard the truth. Now, reckless is fairly hard, right? Reckless is fairly hard. It's not negligence. It's not you missed the ball. It is you acted with cavalier attitude and complete lack of any sort of care or diligence of any kind. That's basically reckless. Devil may care. That's reckless. You know, just floor it, baby, and hope it all works out in the end. That's reckless. So we have to show, or I guess ultimately prove, that Sidney Powell either knew it was false or recklessly disregarded. So can we prove that she recklessly disregarded? Yeah. How can we prove that she recklessly disregarded? These things. This is why we're doing this. We're laying this out to show you made this statement, been challenged on it. Even after you were fired, you keep making statements, you keep coming back, you keep making the same statements, even after you're being challenged over and over and over again. People saying you don't have a case, you don't have any evidence, show us the evidence, and you keep making the statements. So, can we get to actual malice? Yes. So, for those of you who think that public figure is a perfect shield or a public figure could never be found to have defamation, this is the exception that's probably going to prove the rule. We are well on our way to being able to make defamation, even in a public figure status. I think we might have actual malice here. That's why we're laying all this out in such immense detail. Here's all the things that you were told. Here's all the things that you knew. Here's where the recount happened. They told you it wasn't false, and you still went forward. Here's the time you were challenged by Tucker, and you're challenged, and you still went forward. Here's the time that they fired you from the Trump campaign for making stuff up, and you still went forward. Here's the time. Yeah. Yeah. When did I say an absolute? Did I say always or never? I forget. Maybe. Whatever. Just 2 days after the Trump campaign had publicly distanced herself, Powell repeatedly published falsehoods. Trump has been suspended again? That's hilarious. Yeah, they're definitely a public figure without breaking a sweat. It's a matter of public concern. Even if they were a private person, even if Dominion themselves is private, it's a matter of public concern. And that's enough. And of course it's a matter of public concern. It's the election. It's easy. So even if Dominion is somehow a private person, it's a matter of public concern. So now we need public figure status as a result. So we need actual malice. Can we get there? I think we're getting there rapidly, yes. She could blame it on Trump. At this point might not be the worst idea I've ever heard of in my life. On November the 25th, Powell and her Georgia-based ally and co-counsel, Lynn Wood, filed suits together in Georgia and Michigan. In their lawsuit, Powell and Wood alleged massive election fraud, claiming Dominion was founded by foreign oligarchs and dictators to ensure computerized ballot stuffing and vote manipulation to whatever level is needed to make certain Venezuelan dictator Hugo Chavez never lost another election. We weren't founded when Hugo Chavez was alive. Was he alive in 2002? He might have still been alive, but he wouldn't be alive for long. Yeah, we were founded in Canada, which is very different than Venezuela. Yeah. As licensed attorney, Powell and Wood were obligated to investigate the factual basis for their claims before making them in public filings. As such, they either conducted the inquiry required of them and violated their obligations by knowingly making false assertions, or violated their ethical duty by purporting to avoid taking them. There's some ethics problems there, yes. This is why Lynn Wood is in trouble, and this is why Sidney Powell is also in trouble. Yeah. As Powell and Wood had filed their election lawsuit, I don't know that there's any legal standard that would say this anywhere, but my view was that, especially at the start, that you need to give people a lot of slack because the time pressures are so condensed. Normally, you conduct more thorough investigations, which are not possible because of the time. We're trying to, from the day of the election day to the day of the certification, it was like 40 days or something. So you had to run like crazy. So I'm willing to give attorneys a fair amount of slack for lack of the same diligence that they would do in a normal case, because you have to. There's no choice. You have to run like crazy because the time pressures are so condensed. So as a result of that, you have to give the attorneys a little slack on the rules of ethics. What is diligent when you have to file tomorrow is a little bit different than when you file with diligent when you can do it 6 months from now. Basically, is my argument. Even that being said, however, yeah, this was well beyond whatever threshold of grace I think applies in this factual predicate. This is a whole different world of stupid. Lawyers have ethics? They do, in fact, have ethics. We could do a whole reading of the rules of ethics. They do have rules of ethics. Absolutely, they have rules of ethics. And not following them is a big deal. On December the 2nd, the same deal, they filed a fourth election lawsuit. They spoke at Stop the Steal rally. Based on those false accusations, which they claim were backed to piles of evidence and mounds of evidence, they told the crowd there should not be a runoff election for Georgia Senate seats, certainly not on Dominion machines, and implored Georgia voters to flood the legislatures here in Georgia and the governor with phone calls and letters. Wood instructed the crowd to surround the governor's house and blow their horns, letting the crowd attacking him, loud him up, and vowed to never vote for Kemp again. Wood also used the media to espouse stuff. And here we have a picture of them at the Stop the Steal rally in Alpharetta, Georgia. RH said, been watching Rakita Law. He's been saying they've not actually validated the evidence of the ballots. I think it's a load of crapola. What do you think? I don't know what Heath is saying by not validating the evidence. I don't know what that means. So I don't want to characterize what he's saying without understanding it. So I don't know what he thinks did or did not happen. Barbara Smith says, I came over from Emily D. Baker and I love you. Well, thank you, Barbara. That's very kind of you. Chris Dyer. Yeah. So they say I can turn off the autofocus, but I don't want to do that because manual focus, I can't, because it's impossible to manual focus the lens. I don't know how you would do that. I know how you do it. I just don't know how you make it look right, because I can only get up and adjust the manual focus and then sit back down. So I could do that and get the focus right, but then I have to be very perfectly still because it will change the focus. So I just set the autofocus, and so it keeps me in focus. And I also set the track speed low so the switch and the autofocus will be hard to see. It'll be minimal, but using manual focus is just not possible as a practical matter because I can't be both behind the camera and in front of the camera at the same time and make adjustments as needed. Wasn't Trump's Twitter ruled a public forum? It was ruled to be governmental speech, which isn't exactly the same thing. When's my next Viva scheme? No scheduled, but I'd love to do another one. Within the week of the rally, all 4 election lawsuits were dismissed. Between the date of their first election files and their last, when supposedly litigated cases they claim would overturn the results, Powell gave 5 interviews, during which she repeated her defamatory falsehoods. Powell and Wood filed their election lawsuits, which never had a chance of reversing the election, with an obvious and cynical purpose of creating court documents they could post on fundraising websites and tout as evidence during their media campaign. The court where Powell and Wood filed their meritless lawsuits saw, although I do have a very weird problem with the Alpha 5100. I have a very weird problem with the Alpha 5100, and I don't know what it is. But it has face recognition, and I've even registered my face in the camera, and sometimes it sees my face and sometimes not. Right now, it doesn't see my face. And it seems to be like 50-50 whether it registers my face or sees it. So it's autofocusing without face recognition, and I don't know what it's looking for, and I don't know why it doesn't see my face. But I have this very weird problem with the Alpha 5100 where a significant percentage of the time, it just doesn't do face recognition, and I don't know why. I tried Googling, incidentally, to try to find out. Because if it had face recognition, the autofocus would focus on my face, and it would be even less jarring. So if anyone has any ideas about why the Sony Alpha 5100, like half the time, doesn't seem to do face recognition, even though it's on, and even though my face is registered in it, please let me know, because it's really weird and frustrating. NVIDIA broadcast will let do autofocus by software. I'll have to look into that for future, but thank you for letting me know. The media campaign continued with appearances. During one appearance, Trump is permabanned on Twitter. I'm not surprised. I'm only surprised. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Yeah, the camera, I think, is doing an awesome job of keeping me sharp. Thank you very much. Midrian, no, wait, you told me how to pronounce your name one time, didn't you? And it's nothing like it's spelled. How is Mithrin? No. Because you're Scottish or something, and double D's is pronounced TH. So it's Mithrian, right? Did I get that right? Mithrian? I'm remembering from an earlier conversation, because it's spelled Myddrin, but that's not really double D. That's Scottish or something. It's really TH, or it's pronounced TH. So it's Mithrian, right? Mithrian Emrys? So is the DNC going to go full punish your exiled enemies' roots now? Probably. Granted, I think some of L, Lynn, and Paul's lawsuits had issues, but going after them or members of the Trump administration will not play well. Well, they need to be gone after as lawyers because they have corrupted the profession. And I don't think they should be exempt because they worked for Trump. They have brought disrepute on the profession. And as a member of the bar, I would like them exiled from my ranks. And that's how I feel about that. Because they brought completely garbage lawsuits. And they made up evidence, apparently, because they said they had things which they just simply didn't have. And they're right. As these lawsuits were ongoing, when they're apparently doing 5 different lawsuits at the time, or 2 different lawsuits at the time, she's still able to appear on Fox News. 5 different times. Where is she getting time if she's litigating these multiple crisis lawsuits? Not to put too fine a point on it, but she should be sleeping on the couch of her office and streamlining coffee. And she has time to appear on Fox News from where? Because of how condensed it is. chain smoking and stuff. I mean, yeah. During his appearance, Powell repeatedly falsehoods, claiming there was real evidence on fundraising. December 11th, they posted another tag saying there's election fraud. Can only expect a rigged result from Dominion. Even after the hand counts, even after all the evidence fell apart, even after everything, even after we made up evidence, even after there was nothing there. Powell put forward evidence in a court filing deliberately manufactured and cherry-picked, although Dominion is not currently suing based on the false statements in the litigation, which they'd have a tough time doing because of litigation privilege. So Dominion is not suing them based on the statements in the litigation, which they'd have a tough time doing because of litigation privilege. That being said, which is going to be one of Powell's defenses anyway, that all the statements she made was part of the ongoing litigation, so it's all protected by privilege. That's going to be one of Powell's defenses here, among whatever defenses she said, that would be all covered by litigation privilege. So it's not defamation because it was covered by litigation privilege. And then Dominion's going to come by and say you well exceeded the bounds of that, and they're almost certainly right. So I don't believe this camera supports both eye tracking and face tracking. I believe this camera only supports face tracking. I don't believe this camera supports eye tracking, the Alpha 5100. But if it also supports eye tracking, let me know, and I'll be happy to check the setting. Powell also cherry-picked a statement about decades-old machine not designed by Dominion, which was not used in the election. Powell appended Professor Appel's cherry-pick statement to her court filing, so she could post them on a website. In reality, Professor Appel and 58 specialists have forcefully rebutted the claims, claiming they've never claimed that technical vulnerabilities have actually been exploited to alter any U.S. election. They further explained that no credible evidence has been forward to support a conclusion that 2020 election outcome in a state has been altered through technical compromises. Powell also touted a shocking declaration from an anonymous purported Venezuelan military officer. And then there's some sort of doctored Secretary of State. Oh, she cropped off the bottom of the seal. Oh, yeah. No, she just cropped off the bottom of the seal of the Secretary of State. That seems like that was done deliberately, falsely. So this is an attachment in some court document, right? You can tell from the header that this is an attachment in some court document, and she uploaded this certificate of the Secretary of State, which is missing this seal and dating, which means that she submitted a doctored piece of evidence before a court. Yeah. Mithrin Emrys says, you got it, Mithrin. I was remembering from our prior chat. So I'm glad my memory kicked in eventually. Sanctions, sure. Even disbarment works for me, especially for Ellen. My point is this will just inflame the base. The optics are bad. Let things settle a bit. Well, I wouldn't worry about that. It's going to take the bar a year to expel them from the order because they'll appeal and blah, 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 blah. But yeah, your point is well understood and appreciated. Here's a shocker. Here's a shocker. You ready for this one? An attorney is not allowed to doctor evidence when they submit it to a court. Yeah. I know. I know. Shocker. You know. Yeah. One of the government records proved Dominion won a government contract after scoring the highest in the competitive bid process, not a no-bid process, during which it completed ES&S and Smartatic. These records are also publicly available on the very same webpage. Anyone downloading the Dominion certificate from the Secretary of State can see in links directly above it that Dominion competed against Smartmatic for the contract and is thus not the same company as Smartmatic or owned by Smartmatic. it would be weird to compete against yourselves. Yeah. During the defamatory media campaign, Powell actually either knew about these readily available records or purposely avoided them in reckless disregard of the truth and in violation of her ethical duties. Yeah. I'm not having a particularly hard time coming to the conclusion that Sidney Powell has violated some of her ethical duties, even giving her slack, which I personally think that she and Linwood and everyone else in these election cases is entitled to. Personal opinion. I think they're entitled to slack because the time periods are so condensed that some of the duties you can be a little bit, what is diligent and is going to look a lot different when you have like hours instead of days instead of weeks. So I'm willing to give them a lot of slack. Whatever slack I'm willing to give them, they have well since succeeded. And I have no particular problem saying that they have apparently violated the attorney's rules of ethics. And they should be super disbarred. That'll make me feel better. That's for damn sure. Instead of lock them up, kick them out. Kick them out. Kick them out. Yeah. Starring with claims of falsifiable, unreliable, purported Venezuelan military. How many people are watching this right now? 323. Excellent. That's a lot. Yeah. So no eye tracking on the 5100. Yeah. During the defamatory media campaign, Powell has asserted her accusations of Venezuelan election rigging against Dominion are supported by a declaration of an anonymous purported Venezuelan military officer. There are several obvious reasons why the source is unreliable on its face, including a key portion of his declaration is nearly word for word identical to another declaration submitted by Powell, proving that the witness did not write their declarations independently. The declaration has been redacted to conceal his identity and key details about his background. An anonymous declaration? Are we sure this person exists? Are we sure this person exists? Even if he is who he purports to be, there are serious reasons to doubt the outlandish claims of someone who worked for a dictatorship with an interest in undermining the confidence of American democracy. His credibility might be a bit thin, particularly whereas here, his claims have potential to, and did in fact, undermine the confidence in American democracy. American Trump appointees like Chris Kebs and Bill Barr, who, unlike Powell's source, had never worked for the Venezuelan dictator, had confirmed there's no widespread voter fraud in 2020. Does this guy actually exist? That's the next question. Does he actually exist? Do we make him up? But even if one were credible, if even one were to credit the incredible claims of an associate of a foreign dictator, even his declaration does not actually claim Dominion was created in Venezuela. Rather, his declaration makes the claim about Dominion's competitor, Smartmatic. Although his declaration blithely asserts that Smartmatic software is in the DNA of every voting tabulating company's software and system, which, how would that be true? Because that would represent the intellectual property of Smartmatic. Why would they make that available to other competitor companies? That doesn't even make sense. That's a competitive advantage. It's a trade secret and it's protected by intellectual property. So even if Smartmatic was compromised, it's their intellectual property. Why would they just hand it out willy-nilly to every other competing company? That makes none of the sense. Rather, the declaration makes claims about the competitor and says it's in the DNA, which that doesn't really make sense, of software he doesn't have access to, which is operated by companies he's never worked for. As such, Powell knew or recklessly disregarded the claim was obviously baseless and false, and also doesn't really 100% make sense on its face. In addition, if Powell's anonymously purported Venezuelan military officer is in fact this guy, has been reported by the Associated Press and the Caracas Chronicles, that raised serious doubts about the veracity of his declaration. After serving Hugo Chavez, Salazar worked for Diosdado Cabello, the alleged head of the Venezuelan drug cartel, before cooperating with the DEA. He is quoted in a 2016 book in Boomerang Chavez, The Fraud That Led to Venezuelan Collapse, where he alleges that Smartmatic, not Dominion, was involved in vote rigging in Venezuela. But unlike the declaration attached to Powell's sham litigation, the book makes no mention of Dominion and identifies Salazar by name, which also makes him wonder why he's anonymous now, if it's the same guy, because apparently he's already out with his claims publicly, right? So we're not outing him. He has a book about it. This raises troubling questions about Powell's knowledge of the falsity of the claims and evidence she presented. For example, if Salazar was already identified by name in a book alleging vote rigging, why is his identity redacted? That's an outstanding question. What witness's identity are we trying to protect when their name is known because they wrote a book? Not a lot of secrecy to be had there. You know? If Salazar actually believes Smartmatic is in the DNA of Dominion and every other voting company, why is that explosive accusation not mentioned anywhere in this book? If Salazar is now a pure-hearted whistleblower with the best interests of American democracy at heart, you can taste the sarcasm just dripping off the page at this point. You can just taste the sarcasm dripping off the page. Yeah. If Salazar is now a pure-hearted whistleblower with the best interests of American democracy at heart, why did he wait more than 5 years after arriving at the United States until Trump had lost the presidential election to tell anyone the United States elections were rigged through the use of decades-old Venezuelan vote-flipping software in the DNA of all companies serving U.S. elections? And especially given his prior cooperation with the U.S. federal government, why did he take his allegation to Sidney Powell rather than the Attorney General or the Justice Department? Yeah. Or perhaps he did take his allegation to them and they found it incredible and they found it absolutely uncredible and they said, go away. Smartmatic and Dominion share the same base code? That seems odd. Why would that be true? How would Dominion get copy of Smartmatic's code? It's Smartmatic's IP. Do they license it? Do they make their voting machine code available to other companies? Why would they do that? They're just making competitors for themselves. It doesn't quite make sense. Something there is missing. In any event, Powell deliberately embellished her anonymous declaration's obviously false accusation about it being in the DNA, that Dominion and Smartmatic have the same history from their inception, that thousands of other people in federal prison on far less evidence of criminal conduct than we already have against Smartmatic and Dominion systems. These are just a few of the examples. Powell gave an example on Sean Hannity and falsely claimed Senator Warren and Klobuchar were complaining about the Venezuelan connection and corruption with Dominion. Powell's own court filings prove she knew this to be false. How are we doing? We're on page 43 of 124. We're a third of the way through, and we are an hour into this thing. It's going about as well as I expected, even skipping major lines. Powell put forward conspiracy artists and other factually unreliable sources as expert. So this goes to your willful blindness, basically. You put forward people that you knew or should have known are completely non-credible, as though they're credible. So you couldn't have known that you weren't doing that because it was so blatantly obvious. You should have been able to figure that out. So there's some allegations here about some people that we have helped put in there. Russell Ramsland, a conspiracy theorist who claims that George Soros helped form the deep state in Nazi Germany in 1930. I hadn't heard that one before. That one I missed. I missed the George Soros was responsible for forming the deep state in Nazi Germany in the 1930s. I missed that conspiracy theory, I have to say. That's a new one. Also, he was born in 1930. So not only is he responsible for forming the deep state in Germany, he was a prodigy because he was doing it like when he was 8. So at the tender age of like 7 or 8 years old, the Nazis used him to form the deep state, because that's just how good Soros is. This 8-year-old has the secret to forming the deep state, to bring upon the Third Reich. Okay. All right, that's good. I know the right thinks that George Soros is a villain, one step removed from twirling his mustache, but that's a little much, even for the right, isn't it? Apparently not. Yeah, he's a child prodigy in forming deep states. Yeah. Similar, the forming acting director of the Election Assistance Commission was actually an expert, said this report showed grave understandings. Yeah, he's not credible. We got some other people that are not credible. Navyad Krishivara's Nia's claim about the 2020 election were described by then the computer security person for the NSA's director and Trump appointee Chris Krebs as nonsense. And Krishna Neva declared under penalty of perjury that there was a pattern of improbable voting reporting in Edison County, Michigan, a county that does not exist. Yeah. This is a problem. Where does it say the Nazi deep state? Did you miss that quote? Did you miss that? We went ahead. We'll go back to see some more about the Nazi deep state. I don't want people to miss that one. Yeah, it was in paragraph 106. It was paragraph 106 that so we got this quote. We got this quote from Russell Ramsland. Russell Ramsland is a failed apologize. Let's try that again. Russell Ramsland is a failed Republican congressional candidate and conspiracy theorist who has publicly claimed, among other things, that George Soros helped form the deep state in Nazi Germany in 1930, along with President George H.W. Bush's father, the Muslim Brotherhood, and leftists. There you go. Paragraph 106. Russell Ramsland would like to tell you that Soros, who was born in 1930, in the 30s, so he was like 8 at the time, along with President George H.W. Bush's father, the Muslim Brotherhood, and leftists, created the deep state in Nazi Germany. Yeah. Seems a little implausible. Seems a little implausible that happened. Yeah. Yeah. On information belief, they knew these experts were unreliable. I would say so, yes. She's a former federal prosecutor. I forgot that part. That's even sadder. Powell intentionally disregarded hard evidence and reliable sources, who rebutted her and disproved false accusations. Even after Powell's false claims about Dominion rigging the election had been rebutted and disproven by hard evidence of independent audits and hand recounts of paper ballots, and reliable sources like the former head of the Computer Security Division of NSA, Chris Krebs, Trip Punny Boyle Barr, the Republican governor and Republican Secretary of State, federal judges, and 59 election security experts, they intentionally disregard the truth and continue to promote this, even after being informed you're wrong many, 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 many times. While endeavoring to make the facts conform to the false preconceived narrative that was the greatest crime, if not of the century, if not the life of the world. Wow. That just shows a lack of any awareness. The greatest crime of the century, I guess that's true. The century is only 20 years old. So, it probably is the greatest crime of the century. The greatest crime in the life of the world? I can think of some other things that might have a claim for that title. If we're thinking about greatest crimes in the life of the world. We could have an argument about what was the worst thing that ever happened in the history of the world. There's so many contenders. This is not that. Yeah. Shannon said Georgia did a full hand recount. Shannon is wrong. Georgia did 2 full hand recounts. 2. Another hurdle, Trump U.S. Attorney General Bill Barr said U.S. attorneys and FBI agents have followed up on a complaint and there was no evidence, which, of course there's not. For certain other hurdles rendering Powell's defamatory falsehoods inherently improbable, Powell simply ignored them. Yeah. Genghis Khan is definitely a contender. Mao, I think, might have it, though. It's tough between Mao and Genghis Khan. I mean, Genghis Khan did kill so many people, they changed the carbon footprint of the earth. Genghis Khan is definitely a contender. Mao is a serious contender. Oh, some of the stuff that Russia did. Oh, yeah, during the revolution. Oh, that's good. Yeah. So with the whole the gulags and stuff. The Russians might be worth a mention in this list. Yeah. There's a lot of evils in this world. So what I'm saying is there's no evidence. Basically, all the evidence is complete shit. I knew this long ago. It's nice to have it all condensed in one place. Yes, all the claims of election fraud were pretty shit. All the evidence was pretty shit. It was pretty shit. It was all crap. I read a lot of the lawsuits, not all of them because there were so many, but I read a lot of them, and all the evidence sucked. It all sucked everywhere. That was definitely not the impression you were getting from the Trump campaign. It was like we have the greatest evidence, best evidence ever. Court's just too cowardly to consider it. No, it's just that it sucks. It just completely sucks. I am so disappointed at the Supreme Court. I made 3 of these nominees, and they're cowards, and they won't even hear my case. Because there's nothing there. Yeah. Dominion has suffered enormous harm. I would think so, yes. As a result of these false accusations, despite total lack of evidence, despite the amount of paper ballots, Dominion has suffered reputational and financial harms and put its employees' lives in danger. I believe it. I mean, this information campaign being able to go viral over a 3-hour period. The terms Dominion fraud were tweeted out by 2,200 users with 8.75 million followers. Yeah, that's definitely something you love to see as a company. There are 2,200 users located across the United States. Countless other media organizations have used foreseeably republished and disseminated these things. Yes, of course they did. Another person foreseeably republished Powell's defamatory falsehoods. Yeah, so now we're getting to random Twitter users. I don't really care so much about what random Twitter users did. Twitter is a wasteland, and I think if you're citing Twitter for your authority in a case, as a general proposition, there might be some Twitter-specific things that would come up. But as a general proposition, don't cite Twitter in a legal filing. Or don't cite random tweets. How about that? Don't cite random tweets in a legal filing. Twitter is a wasteland. I don't think you should be citing random tweets from random people for any proposition, like ever, basically in a lawsuit, because it's all garbage. It's like, have you seen Twitter? People say a lot of shit, man. I'm not really sure we should be citing random tweets. Just a personal opinion. Some more random tweets that I don't care about. And then we got some death threats, left a voice message on Dominion's customer support line. That's a little bit more interesting. An email with time up and you have 24 hours. Another person left this thing about blowing up the building. Death threats. Dominion has spent $565,000 in private security for the protection of its people. That's demonstrable harm right there. It's like, because of this, we had to spend $565,000 on security. That's immeasurable damage. That's quantifiable. As a direct result of this campaign, Dominion has been forced to make significant expenditures to mitigate this harm to its business and spent $1.17 million. That's demonstrable harm. That's measurable harm. Because of this, we had to spend this money to try to recoup our reputation. Yeah, there you go. I mean, we're making some quantifiable damages here. Oh, and as a result, Dominion is a for-profit company that sells its voting machines. As a result of all this, an Arizona congresswoman said they're drafting legislation to ban the use of Dominions because my constituents don't trust it, probably because of the lies. So it's going to hurt our market. So it's tortious interference, basically. Good times. State legislatures in various states have stated their intent to review and reassess the contracts with Dominion. In calling for Georgia to abandon Dominion, Powell and Wood have sent a clear message what would happen if they didn't. As a clear example, as a result of these viral disseminations, Dominion has been unfairly subjected to hatred, contempt, and distrust of tens of millions of voters and elected officials who are Dominion's actual and potential customers and have received emails, letters, and calls from constituents demanding their avoiding contracts. As a result of this, elected officials have been deterred from dealing with Dominion, putting the contracts in jeopardy. That's a lot of potential business harm. You are interfering with our contractual relationship. Because of your torts, you are interfering with our contracts and our potential business. This is not good. Based on Dominion's historical financial track record, contract pipeline, retention renewal rates, and new business capture rates, as well as the nature, severity, pervasiveness, and permanence of viral dissemination, current projections show losses of $200 million over the next 5 years when reduced to its current present value. That seems plausible. I mean, how many voting machines in how many places does Dominion have business? And they're looking at a 5-year loss of $200 million in present market value. I mean, we could absolutely, and if this gets to trial, we will absolutely quibble with these numbers and get different financial projections. But does it strike me as absurd on its face? It does not. It's like over 5 years, we are projected to lose $200 million because of all this crap. Based on all this shit that we've happened. We can document that. We can quantify that. I believe it. I believe it. Yeah. Based on the track record, yeah. In addition, the viral dissemination campaign is irreparably diminished reputation to destroy the resale value of the business that was worth $450 to $500 million before the campaign. So not only are we losing future revenue in the tune of $200 million of present value, the value of the company today has also been diminished. The present value of the company. So we've lost future value and we've lost current value. And that's where we're getting these numbers that we're talking about in this lawsuit. So the numbers, I mean, we'll have to get into them and have to get experts to calculate all this. But do the numbers seem plausible in their face? They seem plausible in their face. It seems like a reasonable number. I don't know if it's correct, but it doesn't strike me as absurd. After Dominion seeks a retraction, we double down some more. Oh yeah, this is where after Dominion demanded a retraction. Okay, you guys will like this one. I don't know how many of you over here. I don't know how many of you over here are also here because of T with the Toddy without a crystal ball lawsuit. I assume some of you are here in that case. And as some of you are aware, I'm sure, in the Toddy without a crystal ball lawsuit, Toddy sent 4 cease and desist notices to Katie Joy. Now, I think that this has been somewhat overblown by, well, let me rephrase this. I think the fact that there are 4 of them has been somewhat overblown by people, by the non-lawyers participating. The reason is because just because you send a cease and desist notice doesn't mean that it's like valid, right? I can send you a cease and desist notice. It doesn't mean that you did anything wrong or that you must cease and desist. It's just if you don't do this, I will sue. But if I think you're wrong, right? If I think I have a legal right, I mean, if you could put a cease and desist notice in the mail to me, right? If I think that I'm not doing anything legally wrong, a valid response to that would be pound sand. Now, I'm inviting a lawsuit at that point, but I don't think that because she said pound sand 4 times, it's like particularly notable, as opposed to doing it once. If Katie really thought she was in the right, pound sand would be a perfectly reasonable answer, even 4 times. So I think the fact that there were 4 of them has somehow been interpreted as like that makes it better. Makes it inherently better that there are 4 of them. I don't quite see it that way. You can send me the same crap letter 4 times. Anyways, so Katie told Toddy to pound sand, and we saw how well that worked out. So now Dominion has sent a letter to Sidney. Say, hey, Sidney, please stop. Please stop with all this. Please cease and desist. You're really causing us a lot of problems. So how did Sidney choose to respond to this? If Sidney thinks she's in the right, she could respond with pound sand. Is that the option she went for? Let's find out. All right. So she got Lynn Wood, who apparently is now her lawyer, because the Kraken merger the prophecy must be fulfilled. The prophecy must be fulfilled. Lynn Wood is representing Sidney Powell. Okay, great. So Lynn Wood, lawyer for Sidney Powell, wrote the following in response to a retraction from Smart Medic. I represent Sidney Powell. I have carefully reviewed your letter of December the 15th. I'm not impressed. Ms. Powell retracts nothing. And then Powell retweeted Wood's tweet and added, same is true for Dominion. Heard they wrote me too. Haven't seen it, but retract nothing. We have the evidence. They are the fraud masters. So Sidney Powell went with the option of pound sand, Dominion. And I guess we'll find out if she was right or not. Just like we'll find out in Without a Crystal Ball if Katie was right or not to tell Toddy to pound sand. So we will find out if Sidney was right to tell them to pound sand. Here's a spoiler. Sidney was not right to tell them to pound sand. Yeah. Powell expected and intended to reach an audience of tens of millions when she posted that tweet. Her tweet foreseeably not reach only her 1.2 million followers, but also 95 million Twitter followers on the 10 pages she tagged. Yeah. 5 days after receiving this retraction demand, Powell published a binder of information to Zinger News, which foreseeably republished with the headline, Sidney Powell's legal team has a binder of documents she says establishes the 2020 election as a fraud. The binder did no such thing. Instead, it repackaged already proven and discredited reports and declarations, some of which had never been filed in court. Indeed, no documents in the binder had any references or indicia of any court filing or proceeding. Several days later, Zinger News reported that despite Powell's claims to the contrary, she declined to provide any new evidence of voter fraud, and the binder of material her staff provided included only previously published claims. So we put them in a binder. That makes them more impressive. $7 from Q Squared. Your impression isn't as breathless and whiny as to be evocative of Trump's impotence as warranted. 7 out of 10 would listen again, keep practicing. Yeah, I'll keep working on my Trump. Sorry, I'm doing the best I can here. But thank you for the $7. Powell added the link to Zinger News website, publishing her binder to the Kraken Wood website with the caption, read it. Sidney Powell published binder of election fraud evidence. That's not what Zinger News said. They said it's the opposite of that thing. In addition to her binder of evidence, which now, Powell repackaged and republished Ramsland's disproven report on Antrim County, even though, you know. Powell's media binder of evidence also repackaged the declaration of the discredited military expert, of Josh Merritt, a military expert who never worked in military intelligence. The media binder puts forward the declaration as though it were written by someone else. Indeed, the only difference between the new declaration and the old declaration is the the Clarence background. The rest of it is identical. Super. Super duper. In the binder of evidence, Powell also repackaged and republished the declaration of the military officer. Several days after that, she posted to Sidney Powell of the website evidence of foreign interference in the 2020 election. The evidence was comprised of an outline, summary, and timeline that repeated her false claims. But Powell did not include any actual evidence in these documents. In fact, the single footnote in her evidence publication is blank. Nice. In her timeline, she published knowingly false claims. The Dominion was designed to enable vote manipulation used to keep Hugo Chavez in power, which no, that didn't happen. So many falsehoods in the midst of publishing the binders and summaries. They doubled down and repeated these false accusations on the Sean Hannity Show, the Rush Limbaugh Show, Flashpoint, Global Prayer, and Katz Roundtable. Katz has a roundtable? I'm assuming it's not the Broadway show, but I thought it was still a funny joke anyway. Memory, like a river at moonlight. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Yeah, was it that kind of roundtable? I don't know. Stating the nonprofit was working to help me defend the cases and defend me under massive attack. Powell retreated in response to Epoch Time articles that 28,658 Trump votes were removed and another 12,173 switched to Biden in just one Georgia county, along with the hashtags Dominion staff of every county and Dominion shredding documents. That tweet reached 1.2 million followers as well as the other 1.5 million followers. Yeah, good times. Hey, lawyer. Hi, how are you? Question. Did any of the evidence get hurt in any court cases or while kicked on standing? No, some of them were, you meant heard. Yes, some of them were heard. We covered this a little bit earlier. Yes, of the however many there were, quite a few, of course, were kicked for standing or ripeness or mootness or other issues. But there were a few that were considered on their merits. And yeah, the courts looked, and the ones that looked at them on the merits said it was equally crap. So there were a couple courts that did look at it on the merits. They were usually considering it in the context of a preliminary injunction standard, which considers the likelihood of ultimate success as part of the merits. So, if you're interested in the legal posture on this, because you're looking for an injunction. An injunction is an order to do something or not do something. Usually to stop doing something, but it can also be an affirmative injunction to do something. So, an injunction is an order from a court to do something or not do something. And it's usually one of the first things you ask for in a case. Usually in the form of either a temporary restraining order or a preliminary injunction. The only difference between a temporary restraining order and a preliminary injunction is the timing. A temporary restraining order you ask for like right away, immediately. And it's meant to deal with harm that's happening right this second and can't be fixed later at all. So a TRO is very unusual. The most common example of a TRO would be, of course, a domestic violence situation. Because the violence is ongoing and the violence is imminent and happening right now. We need to do something about it right this second. So that's a TRO. That's unusual to get in a court case. It happens, but it's unusual. More common, although still unusual, but more common, is the preliminary injunction, which can happen anytime before the final judgment, but happens usually at the start of the case, just not right at the very, very start, like the first document that comes out the door. So in a preliminary injunction, here's the 4-part standard. I'm going to paraphrase it because I can't remember it word perfect. But the 4-part standard is that you have the likelihood of winning. What is the harm to the one side? What is the harm to the other side? And what is the interest of the public? So you have a 4-part test for preliminary injunction. What is the likelihood of you winning? If we give this injunction or don't, how much will it hurt the plaintiff? If we give this injunction or don't, how much will it hurt the defendant? And what is in the public interest? That's the 4-part test for an injunction. It's also the 4-part test for a TRO. The only difference between them is the timing. And also because the expedited nature, as a practical matter, the standard gets shifted and is treated a little bit more It requires more to get a TRO, because a TRO is usually ex parte. It's usually just one of the people there. Usually the other side isn't there at all. And so the court demands more for a TRO. And it'll give you an expedited hearing like very shortly thereafter. So it's not like you're going to be deprived of rights for very long, but it's meant to solve a problem right this second, and then we'll give you a hearing after the fact. So it's a hearing after the fact rather than before the fact. So it's the timing of things, right? Are we going to give you the hearing first and then stop you, or are we going to stop you and then give you the hearing? All right. So anyways, back to all that. So in the cases that were considered on the merits of the election cases, one of the four-factor test is what is the likelihood of success, right? It doesn't have to be 50% because you would just win, but it has to be more than a mere possibility. It has to be more than a mere possibility of winning. So what exactly does that quantify in terms of a numeric percentage? You could debate that, but let's say 20%, just as a random number. You have to have like a 20% chance of winning. Maybe a little bit more than that. It's variable, right? There's no like firm number. We know it's less than 50, and we know that it's more than a mere probability. So it's more than like 5%. If you're less than 5%, you're done. So let's say 20. Let's say it's a 20% chance of likelihood. So you say, okay, here's the evidence that Sidney Powell or Lynn Wood or whoever else is offering, and here is the evidence from the election commissioner / the Secretary of State / the poll workers who were there at the time / blah, blah, blah. And there were some hearings where these people were actually heard under oath. There were a couple. And the courts looked at them and said, okay, so you have this guy who says he thinks maybe, perchance, as a possibility, that he thinks maybe he saw someone copy a ballot that he thinks went to Biden. Sounds, yeah. And then you have the Secretary of State, the election official of the government for the county, and the poll worker who are like, yeah, none of that happened. And the court's like, yeah, I don't think you have a 20% chance of winning. I'm not saying it's 0, but I don't think it's 20%. So preliminary injunction denied. You can get relief on the merits if we ever get that far, which we're not going to, but So yeah, there were a couple court cases that did look at the merits, and the ones that looked at said this is really lame and stupid and there's nothing here. So yeah, that happened. There are a couple. Trump loots haven't seen a courtroom. That's just not factually correct, Maxim Perkhoundkov. That's not correct. I know for a fact that some of the Trump lawsuits saw a courtroom. I remember reading the cases. I remember reading the hearings. I remember in particular the one where the guy said, yeah, I think maybe perchance I saw someone copy a ballot and it went for Biden, versus the other people in the court saying, this guy's not credible, this guy is credible. I know for a fact some of the Trump lawsuits saw the inside of a courtroom, because I remember reading them, because I read a lot. So, yeah. On January 6th, the United States Congress convened to certify the results of the election. During the joint session, Republican Majority Leader and Trump loyalist Mitch McConnell called the claims Powell had been peddling for months, sweeping conspiracy theories without any evidence. Meanwhile, a crowd was gathering outside the White House, and then there was the mob. Powell remained unapologetic. She doubled down on her lies, and after plugging her Parler account, tweeted the certification vote was based on the most egregious fraud in the history of the almost former republic. She is not backing down for anything, man. And even though the mob was, according to the Trump allies, Powell falsely blamed Antifa. So now we're also going to sue the law firm and the website because they're basically her, and so that's fine. So we'll skip all that. We can skip all the reasons we're bringing her law firm or her firm and her. All right, so now we have the causes of action. Cause of action, defamation per se. You saw that one coming. Powell made the following false and defamatory statements about Dominion. So within Washington, D.C., she made these following statements. These following specific statements within D.C. that's giving us venue. She made this following false statement of fact. She made this false statement of fact. She appeared on Lou Dobbs Tonight and made these false statements. She appeared on America This Week and made these false statements. She appeared from within Washington, D.C., again giving us venue, making these false statements. She appeared on the Rush Limbaugh Show and made these false statements. She appeared on Fox Business and made these false statements. She appeared on Newsmax, Greg Kelly Reports, and made these false statements. She appeared at a press conference in Washington, D.C., again giving us venue, and stated this false stuff. Appearing on Fox Business program Lou Dobbs Tonight, she said some more false things. Appearing on Fixed Business program Morning with Maria, she said these false stuff. We've got pictures too, just to show that it happened. Yes, I don't know if that's really necessary, but throw in a few graphics, I guess. Make it interesting. That's fine. On the Washington Examiner examining politics, this false stuff. On November 21st with Newsmax, this false stuff. On the 23rd of November, some more false stuff. Yeah, Ron says, what's the difference between Powell's Kraken lawsuits and Dominion's Kraken lawsuits? Dominion Kraken actually has evidence. Yeah. Yeah, when there's actual evidence. Yeah. This complaint was very expensive to write. This was very expensive to write. Because we had to do all the research to find all the tweets and all the news programs she appeared on and find video stills for all of them and review them. We had to find these videos. We had to transcribe them or find transcripts of them. We had to find them to put pictures of them. We had to review them to know what they said. And go through all that. This was a very expensive complaint to write. This cost some serious money to write this complaint. I think we're north of $50,000 without breaking a sweat just for this document. Like, you know what Emily said about the document in Toddy. I didn't think it was that expensive. This one I think is that expensive. This one is very pricey. That's a lot of time to actually find it, transcribe it, watch it, document it all, get all the voicemails, all the tweets. Yeah. Sidney Powell has finally found the Kraken. Sidney Powell has finally found the Kraken. It turns out the Kraken was inside of her the whole time. Yeah. Some more false statements that we made, some more false statements that we made on this program, some more false statements we made at this rally, some more false statements we made on this telephone interview broadcasted from Atlanta. Here's some stuff we said on the Mike Huckabee show on December the 5th. Here's some things we said on Greg Kelly and falsely stated some other stuff. Oh my God, this lawsuit's going to take forever. On this, what assets does Sidney Powell have? How much money can she possibly have? I mean, we'll recoup the cost of the lawsuit, and that's about it. Probably by the time we're done. We'll bankrupt her to make a point. We'll pay for the lawsuit costs, and that's about all. But we'll feel better, and feeling better is powerful. So, that's good. So, yeah, how much money can she possibly have? Powell tweeted this. Did Lou Dobbs on this show? What the hell is Sidney Powell wearing in this picture? Holy God. She's wearing like the fur thing from that guy in the Capitol building. What the hell is that? She's wearing some sort of fur shawl, man. Is this thing weird? This is good style, man? Here's something we said on the John Fredericks show. Here's some things we said. We said this tweet. Here's something we said about Dominion some more. Here's some other things we did. Are we feeling like we're going to be able to make the malice standard? Are we feeling like we're going to be able to make malice? I'm feeling like malice is well in the cards at this point. Q Squared said, "Don't worry, Sidney. I'm sure your buddy Donald will pardon you. That's how it works on civil suits." What? No? Oh yeah, you're gonna have a bad time. Yeah. No, it's all horrible. It's all horrible. Here's some things. She, from within the Trump Hotel in Washington, D.C., she published this document. So again, giving us our venue hook, because we did it within Washington, D.C., so that gets us our venue hook. So she'll bitch about venue, and she'll lose. She'll probably bitch about jurisdiction too, just for the hell of it. She'll bitch about jurisdiction. I'm not sure what she'll come up with to bitch about it, but she'll think of something, I'm sure. She'll bitch about jurisdiction. She's going to lose. She'll bitch about venue. She's going to lose. And yeah, they're going to spend 6 months to a year just in motion practice before anything gets done. Probably. Just dicking around. Lame. Yeah. We got this statement made from within Washington, D.C. We got some nice pictures here. I don't know where we're getting all these pictures from, but we're definitely where we're getting all this content from. I don't know where we get it. I mean, there must be somewhere you go to like buy old TV shows, right, or old news shows. I mean, because like the Daily Show finds clips, and they can't have like all of them in their archive. Is there somewhere you go to buy like old TV shows or old news programs? Some company that keeps all those, and you can like, I want the Lose Dolls program from this particular night, and you can buy it for any night or any air. There must be some sources like that. How'd the Daily Show ever get like stuff from like, where they get that? I mean, I assume they have their own archives too, but they can't possibly have archives that deep for everything, can they? Anyways, here's some summary of evidence with some more false statements. Here's some other things that we did with a guy with a constipated expression, I guess. Yeah. Here's some things we said on the Rush Limbaugh show. This just goes on and on and on forever, doesn't it? My God. When does it end? Make it stop. Make it stop. Here's some things we said on the Cats Roundtable, which the memory thing. Yeah. Good. Here's something we said on an installment of Global Prayer for Election Integrity series. What the hell is Global Program for Election Integrity? What is that? What? Apparently it was something that was put together by some guy named Adam Schindler. Some guy named Adam Schindler put together a conference call that people presumably could purchase tickets to, maybe, and he called it Global Prayer for U.S. Integrity, and he invited Sidney Powell apparently as some kind of keynote speaker or something. That's definitely a thing that appears to have occurred. Okay. Yeah, I'm ready to rule, man. I'm ready to rule, man. Oh, man. From her website, she published some more false statements. Powell's statements are reasonably understood to be statements of fact. Powell's statements are in fact false. Far from being created in Venezuela to rig elections, it was in fact created in Toronto, which is a different place. Its voting systems are certified because of backups and audits, because of hand counts, blah, 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 blah. It has no ties to the Venezuelan government, Hugo Chavez, Michael Brown, or George Soros. Dominion does not use Smartmatic software or machines. And there was no Smartmatic technology in any of Dominion's voting machines until 2020. So that somewhat rebuts whatever someone said in chat about them using the same software. Now, maybe there's a way to parse that somewhere, but they seem to be saying that Dominion voting machines did not use any Smartmatic technology. I don't know if that's the same thing as Smartmatic code, but I would intend to do it. So I'm going to stick with, until someone shows me otherwise, I'm going to stick with Dominion software doesn't use any Smartmatic software, because it doesn't even make sense that they would. Yeah, they have no applicable privilege. In the course of the business, made these statements. She's going to try to claim litigation privilege. So that'll be another thing, right? She's going to she's going to claim jurisdiction. She'll argue about venue. She's going to put a motion to dismiss. She's going to argue litigation privilege, which is going to be her big claim. And they'll dick around for that for a while until the court tells her no. And I don't know what other defenses she has. She'll argue the public figure thing. She's just going to lose horribly. It's an easy one. It's even if Dominion is a private company, it's a matter of public concern. So you're in public figure status anyway. $50 from Q Squared. That's a very generous super chat, Q Squared. So thank you. Well, at least it was a big brain power move, fanning the flame. I'm sure an unstable portion of your political power base will do nothing to fulfill the prophecies of your political enemies from before Trump had even won the caucuses, right? Yeah. Dominion is entitled to punitive damages under... What is OG? Is that Georgia? What is OGCA? Is that official Georgia code? And what is OGCA? I think it's like Georgia. Hold on. Let me just check real fast. No. OGCA. What is OGCA? Oh, it's Georgia code. Yeah, I thought that was right. How are we? All right. Dominion is entitled to punitive damages pursuant to Georgia code as set forth above because there's clear and convincing evidence of Powell's defamatory statements at the Stop the Steal rally and other statements described therein showed willful misconduct, malice, and wantonness, and entire want of care. They're also entitled to punitive damages under D.C. law for Powell's defamatory statements at the Washington, D.C. conference and other statements because as set forth in detail, defamatory statements were accompanied with ill will, reckless, wanton, willful disregard, and other circumstances tending to aggregate injury. So I'm not sure about the punitive damages because I'm not sure how much of that can be apportioned to those events, but they can fight about that. If we get to the point where we're fighting about how much punitive damages they really should get because we're fighting about what punitive damages flow from what incident, if we get to that point of the trial where it's all over but the crying. If we get to the point about, well, maybe it's not really $600 million and maybe it's really only $200 million because only $200 million of that can really be attributed to those events, not these other events, If we get to that point of the judicial finding, things have gone poorly for Sidney. The statements are defamatory per se. They've exposed Dominion to contempt and create hatred, yeah. Acting in concert with this, vile defamation, okay, yeah. So, count one defamation is looking really good. Really good for Dominion. She'll dick over litigation privilege, she'll lose. She'll dick over venue, she'll lose. She'll probably dick over jurisdiction, she'll lose. Underlying truth, good fucking luck with that. She'll lose. So, I'm not seeing a lot of avenues here for Sidney in terms of her defense. Her best hope is to cling on dearly and dear life to that litigation privilege and hope somehow that works, which it won't. But that's all she has got going on for her. That's about it. Deceptive trade practices. The false statements constitute deceptive trade practices. The defamed falsehoods about Dominion were willfully made. The statements cause irreparable harm, entitled to injunctive relief, cost of litigation. Deceptive, I mean, it doesn't matter. The deceptive trade practices thing will rise and fall with the defamation. I'm not 100% sure why we're mentioning it, but whatever. It'll rise and fall with the defamation. It doesn't matter. All right, so it's just basically defamation. Prayer for relief, wherein Dominion respectfully requests the court enter the award of following. Awarding Dominion compensatory damages of not less than $651,735,000, which we showed some math for to apparently justify that fairly specific number. $651,735,000. And awarding punitive damages of not less than $651,735,000. Awarding costs and expenses, granting a narrowly tailored permanent injunction requiring removal, and other relief, and we want a jury demand, and yeah. So, Sidney Powell's in a lot of trouble, guys. She's in a super amount of trouble. She can hire basically her best option is to try to drag it out. Basically, that's all you have left. So all you can really do is hire a really high-priced lawyer that will just drag this out in motion practice and make it a Pyrrhic victory. That's about all you can do. Because I'm having a really hard time right now, sitting where I am right now, I'm having a really hard time imagining any real defense that Sidney Powell could raise that really has any probability of working. So, when you read the complaint and you're like, I think that Dominion has a 90% plus chance of winning, it's not going super great. There's a lot of shit here. 95% plus. How confident can I be? 95% is about as confident as I can be. I think Dominion has a 95% chance of winning. So unless Sidney Powell over here can somehow come up with some defense that will blow all of our minds, which I don't even know what that can be. She'll try to drown in venue, she'll lose. She'll drown in jurisdiction, she'll lose. She'll drown in litigation privilege, she'll lose. She'll drown with public figure, she'll lose. If there's an anti-slap, she'll lose. They'll make it past anti-slap, no problem. What else? She'll try some underlying truth, she'll lose. That I can't think of anything that will work. I can't think of anything that will work. Because, your case sucks because of all the things you did. Yeah. Could Sidney Powell plead insanity? Not really. Yeah. If she can show some sort of mental illness that would prevent her from forming the intent, then I guess. Because she would have to know that she was lying or have reason to know. So if you could prove a brain injury or a complete mental break with reality, so that you could try to defeat the ability to form the intent, then yeah. So if she happens to have a tumor growing inside of her brain, that would be super helpful defense. That would be great. If she has a tumor, if she has the same problem, the guy who committed the sniping from the Texas University tower, because he had an organic brain, he had a tumor pressing on his brain. So if she has some sort of tumor growing in her brain that's causing her to have mental, that would be great. I think basically what happened, she conned herself though. She drank her own Kool-Aid. She convinced herself of it all. I think she told lies and then she convinced herself it was true. That's probably what happened. Yeah, that's probably what happened. She told lies and convinced herself it was true. So yeah, if she can prove some serious mental disease, that would be super great. But I'm not. Yeah, this is Donald can pay her legal fees, and anyone can pay her legal fees. Maybe she. Yeah, that'll be good. Maybe she'll start a Kickstarter or something on Parler. Send in $5 to help me fight the. She'll absolutely do that for sure too. I know she will. Of course she will. Send in $5 to help me fight the liberal blah 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 whatever machine. Yeah, that's definitely a thing that's going to happen. He's good for it, right? Yeah. Kurt, pardon me. I only just watched your live stream. You and Nate had January 6th last night. I'm a bit heated. Oh, well, fair enough. I hope you enjoyed the stream otherwise. Have Fry and Barnes gone underground? I couldn't speak to that. Maybe they're just doing everything on that locals thing now instead of doing anything on YouTube. I don't know. Until the law pinged you for the citation to the brain tumor that caused... Yeah. I mean, that would be super helpful. I think Dominion is hoping to get a Trump in Discovery. Hoping to get Trump. I don't think there's any real avenue to get a Trump in Discovery. It's not obvious. I'm not sure why you would get to Trump in particular. I mean, I'm sure you could try to depose him or something. I just don't really think he has anything in particular to do with this. This seems to be really created, manufactured, and designed by Sidney Powell. So, I mean, I'm not sure Trump is particularly relevant to this lawsuit. I'm not sure anyone is really particularly relevant except for Sidney Powell. They'll have a lot of witnesses on their own side. So in terms of witnesses Dominion will provide, they'll have like the secretaries that got the calls and the people that got the emails and the executives. So they have a lot of people on their side that will be deposed, I'm sure. But on Sidney's side, who will be deposed other than Sidney? I don't know, man. This seems like a Sidney-created problem. I'm not sure really anyone else is really relevant to this. But we'll find out. Maxim Perkoff. What if her sources purposely tricked her by lying about evidence and whatnot? Any defense there? She has some duty as a lawyer. To be able to put evidence that is reasonably reliable before the court. You know, you can't put shit before the court. You have some duty to... Now, you can be tricked. That's possible. But it's not just that she made the statement once or twice or 3 times. She made the statement 3 billion times. In fact, even after the hand recounts, even after it had been shown to be crap in like every legal proceeding ever, she made 3 bajillion statements. Oh, I gotta sign off because Emily's starting right now and I don't want to eat into her time. It's 6:59 and I don't want to eat into her time out of respect. If you enjoyed this stream, please give it a subscribe on the way out. Please give it a like. If you're not a member already, please become a member. And until later, my friends, cheers and goodbye.